Welcome to Honest Money, your best guide to financial freedom. I'm Warren Ingram, the author of a few best-selling books, and I'm also an award-winning financial planner, and I've helped thousands of people on their journey to financial freedom. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to share my experience and the best ideas that I've learned, and I hope these ideas help you on your journey to financial freedom. Welcome to another episode of Honest Money. This is quite a big episode for me because we've got a brilliant guest on today, Marnus Broodryk. If you don't know him, I'm going to ask him to tell us a bit more about himself now. But to me, one of the big voices in South Africa around small business and the needs of small business and the way to keep the economy going, and in fact to get jobs growing in this country, not killing them. So Marnus, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Warren.
So just for the maybe one guest in South Africa who doesn't know, or one listener, I should say, in South Africa who doesn't know who you are, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know who I am. But yeah, I'm an accountant by degree. I studied accounting, did my articles, and then I got involved with small businesses and helping them through providing accounting services to them. Started a couple of other businesses. So I do see myself as an entrepreneur, but also created businesses that help other small businesses.
And why small business? What's the attraction for you?
I think my own journey and my own life was I found so much power in entrepreneurship and really what it can enable in your personal life, but also for the people around you. So when I was 18 years old, I started doing articles, and for 4 years I worked with so many small business owners, and I just saw the true potential of that. So yeah, so that has just been my life ever since, helping small businesses.
And I guess in a country like ours, I mean that's really the secret to creating or solving the unemployment problem is create thousands and thousands of sustainable small businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I think even if we can just move the mindset from being employed to creating something, you don't even need to create a business that employs other people. But if you can just create something that gives you your own income, I think if we can get that mindset right, we will have a completely different economy and a completely different South Africa.
I can't agree more. I think if I look at the sort of the last 10 or 15 years, it feels like almost a lost generation now. If we can get people to understand the power of small businesses and the power of entrepreneurship, we change the lives of millions of people in a relatively short space of time.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think it's just in South Africa. I think it's a global mindset that we need to get right. But especially in South Africa, and especially in a time like COVID now, where I hope that it will speed up how we see entrepreneurship.
So what was money like growing up?
What money? No, I grew up. My mom and dad divorced at a young age, so my mom raised me as a single parent, and there was really just no money in the house ever. So I had to start work and start to learn things so that I can generate my own income. And I'm also grateful for that because it forced me at a very young age to get to know how money works and how you generate your own income.
And do you think that gives you a grounding for how you look at, not so much just businesses, but your personal finances now? Do you think that's what kind of lays the foundation?
I think it does in a certain way, but I also think it changes as you grow older and as you get different amounts of money, right? Because when you're young and you're trying to save, but when you're getting older and you're accumulating a little bit more, you obviously need to see how that can grow for you, and you can't have the same mindset as you had when you were in your early 20s. So I do think it was a great foundation, but I also think your mind needs to keep up with money as you grow.
And I know you've been on TV as well. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was just starting to share advice on the net when I helped a small business, and I found something valuable in that, or I learned something from a small business owner. I started writing about that. And then CakeNet asked me to come and do a little show on one of their programs. And then Shark Tank happened on Mnet, and they were looking for an Afrikaans guy. So they called CakeNet, and CakeNet said, well, this is the guy we've got. And that's how I ended up on Shark Tank.
Amazing. And if you look at the journey from then to now, your experience, helping entrepreneurs. Do you think we're getting there? Do you think that more entrepreneurs in South Africa are kind of waking up to the power of small business, more South Africans in general?
I would say I've got a bit of mixed feelings. I think people want to be an entrepreneur. They want to have a small business. But if you're coming from corporate, or you may be coming from a lot of security, it's very difficult to do that. And I think people underestimate what it takes to do that and to build that. But after a couple of years, people get used to what it takes to actually do that. And the mindset change a bit, but it's a very difficult journey. But I do think that just the global phenomenon is to get more into creating your own thing.
And so today, what is it that you do today?
Geez, Warren. So at the beginning of 2020, I had this grand vision that I'm going to take a sabbatical at the end of March. And I had all these amazing trips booked to Mexico and Miami and retreats in Asia. And then when the end of March came, the entire world took a sabbatical with me. And now we're all sitting at home. So I really wanted to scale down at the end of last year, beginning of this year, to enable this. So I exited everything, and I'm currently just involved with Bean Counter, and as well as a new tech startup that I've just invested in.
Can you tell me a bit more about Bean Counter?
Yeah, so Bean Counter is an accounting firm that I started way back when I finished my articles. And then about 4 years ago, we sold it to Transaction Capital, which is a listed company. 2 years after that, I bought it back. And currently we're just servicing small businesses, and we're providing outsourced accounting to small businesses. It's a service that they really need. Business owners need to know what's happening in their business, but they can't always afford a top qualified CA or proper accountant to do that. So they can outsource that function to us at a fraction of the cost. So we save them a lot of money, and generally we provide a much better service. And
in an environment like this, is a lot of that done online? Is that something that they're sitting with you, or is that something they're uploading documents? How does it work?
Yeah, so we're definitely embracing a lot of technology. So it's a pretty seamless process, and we try and do everything online as far as possible, and as far as it accommodates the client. But yeah, in a perfect world, we get them to scan all their invoices to us. We automatically process it. And at the end of the month, we give them very accurate financial reports, and we make sure that they stay out of jail from SARS's side, but still save them the maximum amount of tax.
Fantastic. And I think it's one of those things when you talk to entrepreneurs, typically, not all of them, of course, they're not great on the admin. They're much better on running the business than the business of administration.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's sometimes a problem with really small business owners, because in a certain way, we as South Africans, we love to DIY, but we don't always realize the opportunity cost that's involved with that. So outsource it to the people who knows best, pay them a fraction of the cost, and you can use that time to generate more business.
How do people find you if they need that?
Can simply head over to thebeancounter.co.za. We've got fixed pricing, so everything is up there, and then you can compare that to what you're currently paying, or just the benefit that you will have of not doing it yourself.
And if they hear it from Honest Money, I assume you're going to give them a great deal.
Of course. Just put in Warren Ingram in the coupon code. No, for sure. But it's about, I think it's always about saving businesses money. So definitely the fact that it's on Honest Money, it's about that. But also I think there's so many ways that you can save money through accounting. So you can pay less tax, but it can also free up your own time, or you can cut costs. And I think in a time like Corona, everyone is trying to see how they can cut costs. So we're not saying to go and retrench your people, but rather use your people in a much more productive way.
So for an entrepreneur coming out of the Corona environment, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would that be now?
I think it's really about planning at the moment. So there's so much uncertainty, and we don't know what's going to happen. But I really think you can't just naively close your eyes and hope for the best, or hope that government is going to do something for you. I really think that people need to plan now, and you got to do that with information. So you got to take the financial information that you've got, and you got to plan for the worst case scenario or best case scenario. But you definitely got to have a plan. And what I'm seeing with so many small businesses, owners, they're really just closing their eyes and hoping that it will blow over. And I think it's not the right approach right now.
I think the reaction, talking to South Africans, we usually go one of two ways. We either get too positive or too pessimistic. And in a time like this, it's very easy to become incredibly pessimistic. And I feel, you're right. Planning is the right thing to do, but at the same time, plan for how we grow out of this. How we thrive out of this. Because I don't think that it's only distraction. I don't believe that that we come out of this just worse in every aspect everywhere. I think people who do nothing will come out of this worse. But I suspect there are a lot of people already who are thriving in this environment and looking for opportunities to take care of the new needs that will come out of a post-COVID world.
Yeah, for sure. So we've renamed all our survival plans to thrival plans, and I hope that's something that will soon trend. Thrival.
So it's interesting with your background, but both from an academic point of view in the accounting world and then in the business world. How do you manage your own finances? How do you put everything into business? Do you invest everything? Do you go on the balance? Is it in your mattress? You've got a rather big mattress.
So I think as an accountant, I'm very risk averse, but as an entrepreneur, I like to take risks. So I always believe that you can definitely create a lot of calculated, or you can take calculated risk. So I like to do that. And then when it comes to my own money, I'm debt free. And I've had a balance of that in my life, where in my early 20s, I really didn't spend a lot. I just reinvested everything into business. But I felt like you also can't be frugal with money when you're an entrepreneur. I understand when you're an employee and you really got to save. But I always found that this balance between spending and hanging out at the right places and versus not taking on a lot of debt is super important. I don't see a benefit of trying to cut back on cappuccinos in your 20s just because you wanna spend less. So I think it's that balance. And then today I realized that I'm not such a great trader as I thought I was. So I've lost a lot of money on CFDs in the past, through doing a lot of stupid stuff. So today I take a little bit of a more risk-averse approach to investing.
So what's your one big sort of financial weakness?
I think I'm hoping that I've stopped this now, because I've deleted all the apps off my phone so that I can't make a stupid decision in the moment. But I think it's almost greed versus gamble, where something is happening and you know something and you just want to take a bet that's completely out of line with your own risk appetite. It's all the stuff that you say every day, Warren, on podcasts, the stuff that you guys write about, all the stuff that you say you shouldn't do. Then you listen to it from the age of 20, and then you completely ignore it until you learn the really hard lessons. And then you back off and you start doing what the experts told you to do.
100%. I mean, and I think it's funny because it's often the people that are supposed to be the experts that make the biggest mistakes. And then that's how they become great teachers, because they've had the hardest lessons.
Yeah. And I think it's probably just finding that balance between greed and just being clever with your cash.
And I think it's interesting, I'm sure you've found the same experience. When you talk to entrepreneurs especially, they get the greatest return on their capital from themselves, from the effort they put into their businesses with the money that they've got. And so it's interesting to watch them. I don't generally meet entrepreneurs until later in their business lives. They've gone through the sweating times, and have got in hopefully to the thriving times. And then at some point they start to say, well, it's maybe time to take some profits off the table. And it's amazing having conversations with them then, because typically they're looking at it and they're saying, but I can always do better in my business. And so, for an entrepreneur, I think it's that question of risk and return now. The returns are always there if you're willing to take the risk, but sometimes it's actually not about return anymore. It's about de-risking away from your business, building up a safety net so that you can take care of families or whatever the deal is, and then keep going on the business. I don't think it's an either or. In the
Sure.
early days, it's an only, right? There is no choice. It's your business and it's everything. But there is a time, and it's the one thing, if I was talking to entrepreneurs, that I'd always be saying to them is, there is no greater return than you. There is no greater asset than yourself, and that's absolutely true, and to a point. And then potentially at a point you become a threat to your family's future, because you keep wanting to grow and to build, and it's great, but you've got to de-risk at some point and set aside the rainy day money and the boring money, and then carry on with the exciting stuff of being an entrepreneur.
For sure. I think there are so many similarities between your world being investments and my world being entrepreneurship, because I think two things that stand out for me, also what you just referred to, is one is that you gotta be risk averse, right? And I'm sure you've seen so many people, and I've seen so many people who came out of 20, 30 years of corporate work, took all their pension and invested it in a business, and then it completely went pear-shaped. And I think on your side, you've probably seen the same, where people have thrown good money into bad investments and have lost everything at a late age. And then I think the second thing, I was lying in bed last night and I was listening to Warren Buffett talking over the weekend. And the one thing that he said and always says is that you got to play the long game, right? And I think the people in entrepreneurship are not patient. You want this quick fix, quick success in a short space of time. And I think it's no different in investing. You got to play the long game. So I think regardless of whether it's investing or entrepreneurship, it's probably just the psyche of humans that we just want so much as quickly as possible.
And I think often, the secret to success is sometimes just being around. It's just getting up and getting to do the job again, and day after day after day. And somewhere along the line, the success arrives, not because of luck, but because of sheer determination sometimes. And I always think, both in the investment world and maybe in the entrepreneurship world, sometimes people give up too early. Sometimes people, they just don't take that extra hard step that actually was required to make it work. And, they lose faith in themselves or their business or their idea. And I feel, that's probably, if you're using a sporting analogy, you can't score 100 in 6 balls. You've got to score 100 with hundreds of balls. And that's the same with investing. It takes hundreds of days of sheer perseverance. And I imagine the same in entrepreneurship.
For sure. But we know this, but we don't like doing it.
I wasn't going to say thank goodness, but thank goodness that there is access to information where people can hear it again and again and again, and hopefully it lands one day.
Do you think there's a change though? Do you think, I always wonder about this. So like I'm a little bit interested in investing, but I always hear that when there's a crash, don't panic, don't sell. And then I wonder, do people get better with that over time, or is it just still the same thing? Like when the crash happened now, that people all also just sell? Or do you think that education actually comes through where people are actually listening to this?
I think there's two parts to it. So one is the education aspect lands on people that are psychologically in the space to hear it. So in other words, I mean, part of our tolerance for risk is hardwired. It is psychological. And so no matter how educated you are, how financially sophisticated you are, if psychologically you don't have the tolerance for risk, then you will only be a fair weather investor. You will only be okay to be invested with things that you don't control when the markets are going up. And the moment that markets turn, you'll become uncomfortable. And when markets fall, you will sell. And that's a hardwired response. So for people in that space, I don't think education helps at all. They should often actually outsource it to someone else. So often if you look at sport, if you're running, you need a running partner to keep you accountable. And I'd say the same with investment. So investing as in a kind of a life partnership makes sense there. But for people who have the emotional fortitude or the psychological tolerance, sometimes it's a sheer lack of knowledge, a sheer lack of access to information. And for them, the repeated information that goes out in whatever form lands, and they take it and they deal with it well. So I think, we're probably talking to psychologically a third of the world's population can do this well, can actually get through the crashes well without reacting too badly. Unfortunately, that third they're often not quite psychopaths, but they if you look at Warren Buffett, I don't think he was the easiest dad to have, because he's got the logical makeup of a computer, I guess. But it's interesting. I think education doesn't relate to risk tolerance. The two, unfortunately, are not the same. So that's why you find. You'll find that I think a lot of entrepreneurs they're absolutely willing to take risk when they're in control. But the moment it's out of their control, and even if it was just putting money in a bank account or putting it in an exchange traded fund, it's not something they can control, and they hate that. So they have no risk.
Okay, and it's going to be a dumb question, because is that why the market didn't drop? No one was greedy this time.
No, the market the market collapsed, I think. But what we'll find is that people were quick to bounce. More people were looking for opportunities after the first big crash, and so it started to rise. And then I think what happened is, which is the other side of this, is that some people became greedy, looking for the opportunity. What they haven't calculated is the opportunity will present itself again and again in the next few days, weeks, and months, because I think the markets don't understand yet how deep the crisis is economically around the world. When we see unemployment escalating and companies in the States falling over to some extent, that's when the real opportunities will be there. And I think if you've heard Warren Buffett, you would have heard him say he's not deploying cash yet, because he knows the opportunities aren't there, but there will be. So Marnus, I'm looking at our time. We're running out, and it feels like it's 30 seconds already, but it's not. I wanted to ask you, what's the one thing that you would tell yourself if you were to meet the 20-year-old version of yourself now?
I'm very happy with my entrepreneurial career and what I've invested in that, and the businesses. And it's always, I think it's difficult looking back, because you've learned so many lessons, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't go through that. So I'm very happy with entrepreneurial career. I would say that I definitely had to focus on one thing at a time. I think focus is key. And with regards to money and investments, like I said, I've paid high prices for CFDs and taking stupid trading moves. So I definitely wouldn't have done that. But yeah, I'm also happy that I did, because I learned through that.
Fantastic. Well, it's been brilliant having you on the show. I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Warren.
Thank you for listening to Honest Money. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is @WarrenIngram. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Chat soon.